In this video we're going to cover which one is best. Can you paddle these solo?
What is it like to dry, and why has the price changed since we bought them?
And finally, have we had problems with the floor in the Itiwit 3 behind us down there? So we'll start off with which one is best in our opinion. Well, to be honest, they're a different kettle of fish, aren't they, really? One's a £300 boat, and essentially one's a £200 boat. That's not what we paid. We paid 94 for the K2, the Intex K2. We paid 94 from Amazon. The Itiwit 3, we paid 229. They are a different price now, but we'll get on to that, talking about which one is best in our opinion. To be honest, I would undoubtedly, without a shadow of a doubt, say the Itiwit 3 as far as I'm concerned, wouldn't you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. The reason is just so much more solid. It feels like a solid boat. The only way I can describe it is if you imagine them whitewater rafting sort of heavy duty boats, it kind of feels like that. You can pump it up to a higher PSI and it's just generally more stable, isn't it? With
yeah, the other one's a little bit more rocky, I think, in the water, but then it is lighter, so that might make that happen, I suppose.
I mean, the yellow one, the K2, is faster in the water, but yeah, it's 3 kilograms lighter. Yeah. But the Itiwit 3, it's just so more robust. I know it's a more expensive
I think you worry
boat.
less if you're in the Itiwit and then you crash into the sort of side of the water where there's a few bits of shrubbery than you do when you're in the yellow one. You kind of think, quick, get out of the way, don't you?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel as strong like the material.
Shrubbery wise, I'm far less worried about the Itiwit because it has got that external cover. It's like a thick, heavy duty, almost like a canvas, but it's not cotton, you know, like a Cordura sort of coating with the air chambers inside, so it
feels pretty scratch sort of resistant and everything, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, we've scraped it over rocks. I mean, the bottom is like a reinforced PVC type of, I think it's PVC, but if you imagine the side of a curtain sided lorry, it's like that real heavy duty sort of like reinforced with material woven into the plastic. It's very windy today, so you have to excuse any wind noise I might be picking up. Whereas the the K2 is just like a rubber dinghy, really, you know, that vinyl sort of thing, but it is a bit thicker than that. It is a bit more heavy duty. We've not had any issues with puncturing or anything like that.
No. One of the other differences on the bottoms is the skegs on the Itiwit are like 2 little small ones.
3
little small ones, and then on the other one it's just got like 1 big one. And so if you're going through weeds when you're in the water, you tend to find that the K2 does pick up the weeds more, and so you get quite a lot of drag on the boat, whereas that one tends not to do it so much. The Itiwit, go through the weeds a bit easier, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, when we got here today, I mean, you can see down here all the weed. It was horrendous. It was right back there, and it took us a good 10 minutes to paddle through, and I've just flushed the lock now to get rid of it some. So I've chained the lock gates back and did the guillotine door up and just swept it all through.
We had to stop at one point, and Gareth had to get his paddle and take the weed off the bottom of mine, because it was just like, I feel like I'm pushing a lorry.
Yeah, Zoe she was like lagging behind a bit, and I was like, what's up? And she's like, it's just harder to paddle, and it was like a big clump of weed on the skeg at the back. So yeah, best, I would say 7 days a week, the Itiwit. If you want something long term, it is very robust. I mean, it's got to be getting on for well over 2 years now. We've had this, probably 2.5 years, and we've absolutely zero issues with it so far. But yeah, if you are, it is worth saving up that little bit extra for the Itiwit,
especially now that one's price has changed and gone up, isn't it? It
yeah.
wasn't so bad when we paid 94 for it.
Yeah.
But
so can you paddle these solo? Well, you'll probably notice that we've got 1 seat in each, so yes, most definitely.
There's only 2 of us, so yes, we've both paddled solo.
One thing we will say is you'll need a kayak paddle. I mean, when we use that together, we tend to canoe. So canoe and kayaking is more associated with the way you paddle rather than the vessel itself. So but you can't solo canoe paddle that, you know, with a single-ended paddle, because you can't J-stroke in it. It's just the hull is the wrong shape and it's very hard work. So yeah, you will need kayak paddles. We find about 260 centimeters is a good sort of length for your paddles for these, because they are a bit wider than your standard fiberglass kayak, so just so you're not getting as wet. If you use short paddles you will get wet, but yeah, definitely soloable. Is that a word?
Probably not, no.
I just keep making up words. Yeah, that's a bit faster in the water. Like Zoe said, it's lighter when you're on your own. But if I was doing a long trip, you know, for the reliability, I would choose the Itiwit. Not that that's let us down yet. We have had one slight issue with that, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, for those who have asked in the past, which is loads of people, we probably get 3 or 4 people a week, don't we?
Yeah, asking the same question.
Comment
Yep.
and say, can you paddle this solo? Well, yes, you most definitely can. I mean, one's a 3-seater, which is the Itiwit, and the K2 is a 2-seater. But yeah, if you want to use it on your own or use it with a family, it's definitely doable. Right, so why has the price changed? So like we say, we've had loads of people ask this, and because we paid, what, it's either 94 or 96 for the K2. To be honest with you, it's lockdown. Lots of people have been out paddling, they're wanting something to do. Water sports has been open for a long time now, and Amazon has just bumped up the price. All the sellers have just bumped up the price to stupid amounts. I mean, we've seen that K2 for ridiculous amounts, like £300.
Yeah, even more than the Itiwit sometimes, and it's kind of not worth it.
It is definitely not worth £300. It was worth £100, you know, that sort of money, worth £100 definitely. But if you're asking, is it worth it for £200, I would say not.
No.
I would save up that bit extra. With the Itiwit, the price has increased £70. I think it's £300 now. I would say it probably is at the top end of the scale worth £300. I mean, I was quite happy to pay $229 for it over 2 years ago now. I realise prices do go up of things, but it's a bit annoying that they've done that in the first place. And another thing to note is Decathlon, who produced the Itiwit, has changed suppliers for this. So during lockdown, it was produced in France, I think, possibly a factory in China, I don't know. But regardless, the factory producing it couldn't produce them during lockdown for whatever reason, and Decathlon had to move suppliers. So same boat, different suppliers. This was confirmed in the inflatable kayaks forum by a Decathlon staff member. There's been a few reports of the people having problems with the floors, like popping and things. I can vouch for ours. It was an older model. I can't vouch for the new one because I just don't know. I don't want to say yes, it's brilliant and everything, and then you have problems with the floor. So just note, if you've watched our previous review of the Itiwit 3, it was made by a different company, even though it looks the same. I mean, you can buy the replacement chambers and all that sort of thing, but I just want to put that out there, that it is manufactured by a different company now. So it's supposed to be made by the same spec, but I don't know whether they've cut corners or what the issue is. It still gets, on the whole, good reviews, but is it made by the same people as ours was? Then no, it's not. So just bear that in mind. So that leads us on to our next point. Have we had any problems with the floor in ours? Well, no. As far as I'm aware, it's only the newly manufactured ones by the different supplier where people have been having problems with the floors. None of the chambers have given us any issues, touch wood, so far. But I would recommend using the dedicated Decathlon pump because it has got the pressure gauge. I mean, 1.5 psi on this in all 3 chambers, but no chambers have given us any issues. We've always stuck to the right pressure. I mean, that one is 1 psi. We pump these up with a 12 volt airbed pump and then just finish them off with the Decathlon pump, which is on the back of the boat there.
Something to note is that when it's a hot day, you have to remember that pressure changes inside the chambers. So you have to make sure that sometimes you need to take a little bit of the air out if you're going to be leaving it in the sun, having a picnic, or if you're wild camping or something. Just make sure that you do go and check the pressures if it's on a hot day, because that's when you get the trouble where it would maybe expand to the point where it could break.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of issues stem from what Zoe's just said. People leaving them out in the sun all day and not realising that air expands when it's warm, and what could be 1.5 psi in the morning when it's quite cool could quite easily be 3 psi on a hot afternoon, and it's just putting too much stress on the chambers. And it's not a manufacturing fault, it's a user error, and people should be aware of that fact. And if you are leaving it sat in the sun, just let a bit of pressure out, and then we take the pump with us, so we'll let a bit of pressure out, and then when we're ready to paddle off, we'll just pop a bit more air, get it up to the correct pressure, and be on your way, sort of, rather than leaving it sit all day. Same goes for the K2 as well. So we've had loads of people ask us about these camo covers that we use to make them, because it's not the most stealthiest of boats in the world, is it?
Quite orange now.
So yeah, these covers, I'll put a link in the description. These are from Amazon. Just be wary though, buy from the link, because I'll link to the correct size for this particular boat. If you get the wrong size, I mean, you have to oversize this cover, because although the boat is something like 3.8 meters, I think the cover is not for boats that length. It's bigger, but that's the one we found fits the best. So yeah, if you're interested in getting one of these, but also it protects it from UV exposure from the sun, keeps the inside dry when it's raining and you're on camp. But
pretty good when we had it on a Wales camp, because from a distance you couldn't see the boat at all, could you, when we walked away?
Yeah, I mean, I'll show a clip here where we first went camping with this, and we used the cover and we walked away, and the boat just blended in. So yeah, check the link in the description, and for one of those covers on Amazon.
You can also use it as one of those boat sails.
Yeah, you could. I'm going to try that on the way back. Come on, wind. So another little tip is sandwich bags. They're good, decent ones with a zip seal, good for storing your phone in if you do happen to take a swim like Zoe's about to now. Also, make sure you wear PFDs, which is personal flotation device. These are just cheap Helly Hansen ones off Amazon, so I'll put a link for the description in those. But they're good because you've got like good movement in those, so if you do fall in, life jackets are useless for swimming in.
Swim quite well. In fact, actually, you just bob out the water.
Yeah, so if you do fall in, at least you can actually, you've got good arm movements to swim out, but also for paddling as well. You don't want something restrictive, so don't look for life jackets. Get PFDs. Right, we're going to go back home now, and I'm in that one on the way back, the K2, and Zoe's in the big Itiwit 3. So I'll see how she gets on with having a big vessel. Better not capsize it or sink it, you know. Right, let's get in the boats. So one thing I do notice about the K2 is it doesn't track as straight as the Itiwit does. If you compare the front of the boat and how it's moving side to side with that of the Itiwit when I was paddling, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about. I think that's probably to do with the better hull shape underneath on the Itiwit, but also the Itiwit has 3 skegs, so it has one at the front and 2 at the rear, and although they're smaller, they do seem to do a better job at keeping you nice and straight, which is good, because then you're not putting so much effort into moving side to side. All your paddle energy, so to speak, is going towards moving you forward. So yeah, although this might seem a bit faster, it might also knack you out a bit more. How are you finding that, Zoe?
Easier than that one.
Are you?
Yeah.
Alright.
So I definitely think the Itiwit is easier to paddle. I think it goes in a straight line a lot easier, to be honest. It seems a lot smoother, sturdier.
You've got froth under your boat.
Have I?
Yeah, it's frothy underneath.
That's because I'm going at great speed.
Yeah.
How are you finding it in there?
Oh, I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. It's boiling now.
It is.
It's really warm, isn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, I think I'd go Itiwit after paddling the other one, and then paddling this one. This one's definitely easier, I think.
Yeah, I mean the K2,
solo.
The K2's all right, but it is more of a toy, like a rubber dinghy, than the Itiwit. Itiwit seems a bit more of a serious bit of kit. That's sort of the impression you get from the quality and how it paddles. I mean, they're both good in their own rights. If you're paying around £100 for this, yeah, it's worth it. But I think, yeah, your money's going to be spent better on the Itiwit. Still getting on all right?
The weeds are hard work, whichever boat you're in, to be honest, aren't they?
They are knackered after getting through all that. Like, it's like, oh, it's horrible. It's like blanket weed or something, isn't it?
Now we're going into it.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed about this boat is the sides. When you sit in it, it's a bit more bendy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it is with me in it anyway.
More so with you in, but it is definitely. This one feels actually generally just comfier. To be honest,
that doesn't really bend much at all. I think
No.
when you're in it, it's solid. That thing is. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? So another tip: if you are coming through crud like that, you'll probably find it hard to paddle when you get out the other side. Just paddle backwards and it'll release the weed from your skegs. See, this is exactly the sort of crap that the skeg on this gets caught up in really bad. Horrible stuff this is. It is just something to consider because it's like a big shark fin on the bottom of this, and it does tend to collect all this stuff when you go over the top, whereas that's got 3 shorter ones that you know, they just don't seem to collect it as much, or if it does, it comes off quite easily. And finally, how do we dry the boats? Well, the K2 is a bit easier because that's just a case of sling it in the car, in the boot when it's wet, just roughly fold it, and when you get home you can either just spread it out and let it dry in the sun, or give it a bit of a wipe with a tea towel or an old towel. Ideally both sorts will need a garden. I mean, you can hang them over washing lines. We've hung them over the banister in the house when it's been piddling it down outside. Now the Itiwit, some people have put in the reviews moaning because they've opened it and it's mouldy. I'm not being funny, but if you put a wet item away that's made of some sort of material, it will go mouldy. I can only presume those people have never camped before in their lives. Like, for example, you wouldn't put a wet tent away, but then again, you wouldn't put wet washing away, would you, and expect it to be nice and fresh and mould free when you got it out a few weeks later. So I don't know why people think that boats are any different, but it is literally a case of Velcro 3 down each side, and then the floor is literally out. Just lay that down in the sun for 20 minutes. Just the thing with these, you just make sure that the insides are tucked, you know, so you can just get a bit of air. You can dry the base with a tea towel or an old towel just to mop up any bits of water, but it's really not a problem drying it. If you've not got a garden, probably wouldn't consider getting a boat. Then again, if you're camping and you haven't got a garden, I wouldn't consider getting a big tent that you can't dry somewhere. I mean, if you haven't got a garden yourself, ask a friend or a family member. I'm sure you know someone with a garden, but yeah, it's not a problem whatsoever. Just show you quickly, I mean, we've had this well over 2 years now, and you can see underneath the edges of absolutely no mould, so it's not an issue looking after these. It's just laziness, people blaming equipment for their own shortcomings or lack of knowledge, whatever you want to call it. But it's like if you have a tent, you won't blame the tent for going mouldy because you packed it away wet. Same goes for these. No, never had an issue personally. It's yeah, just literally a case of laying them down like that, and job's a good one. So after a quick shower and a bite to eat, they're blown up, they're dry, and they're ready to pack away. So yeah, personally not found an issue drying the double skin sort of kayak boat. So as I said earlier in the video, we had a slight issue with this today. I have seen this happen before, and it seems to be a bit of a common problem on these. Like I say, 2 years of use without issue, and then today I notice hole developed. Now apparently this is an issue with these. So when you blow the chambers up, it's putting pressure on that seam, and it's split right through there. So what I'm going to have to do is get a sheet of PVC and some proper boat epoxy glue and just put a patch over that to stop it separating. I mean, I was aware of the issue and it didn't let no water in. What we did today is put a bit of gaffer tape over there just to reinforce it, but I have seen that happen to other users. 2 years it's took to do that. Manufacturing fault, or design fault rather, I think, but just something else to note with this. If you're paying nearly £200 or whatever for this and you can get that for 300, you know, it's false economy, I think. Yes, under £100. Good little fun boat, but I don't really think you should be paying much more than that. So to sum up, really, the K2 versus the Itiwit 3. Buy that one.
Yeah, I would say if you can get the yellow one for the price we paid, sort of around the £94 mark, then it's worth it. But if it starts getting higher and higher, then you're just much better off putting your money towards the Itiwits, and that is a much more comfortable boat, more reliable, stronger.
Yeah, I think what you got to think is fun on the beach, in shallow rivers and lakes.
Yeah.
More sort of serious if you want to do camping trips and that
If you
sort of
just
thing.
want to try it out and that was cheap, then that would be fine. But if you're just trying it out and that's expensive, then it's no good.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good little starter boat, but
Yeah.
like I said a minute ago, I just had that problem with the seam splitting at the end. Had no issues with this, but just remember this is the old version. I'm not sure if Decathlon plans to move back to their old manufacturer for these. It might be worth sending them an email just to confirm that, but I can't vouch for the new floors on the newly made Itiwit 3s or the 1-2s or 3, so I just, I can't. All I can say is make sure you stick to the pressures, and if it's a hot day, just let some air out and just check, recheck them before you paddle back. Take the pump with you.
At least with the Itiwits you can replace all parts separately, so if something does happen, you're not like throwing your whole boat away. Luckily we haven't replaced anything yet.
Yeah, I mean, if a chamber splits on this, it's the whole boat in the bin.
Gone, isn't it?
Whereas this has got everything's zipped into inner chamber, so you just take the PVC chamber out and replace it, and it's very easy to do. We've not had an issue with any of ours, touch wood, yet, but it's nice to know. It's nice to know that you can replace all the parts, including the seats and the chambers in them and everything, and it's just coated in a nice tough material. So, yep, hope that was useful. Hope it answered some common questions that we get asked on a weekly basis, and thank you for watching.